Okay, so today we're going to really do a deep dive into international trade,
All right.
but specifically tariffs.
Okay.
And, this is something that affects everyone.
Absolutely.
To illustrate how this affects everyone, like a few years back.
Yeah.
Do you remember when, like, the price of washing machines just, like, suddenly spiked?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so, like, tariffs on imported parts,
Right.
that was a big reason for that.
Exactly.
And so that's the kind of impact that we're talking about today is, like, these taxes on imported goods
Yeah.
can really hit you right in the wallet.
They can. And we're not just talking about washing machines,
Yes.
everything from like your avocado toast in the morning
Absolutely.
to the car you drive could be affected by these things.
Yeah.
And, a couple of years ago, former President Trump,
Right.
he threatened to put tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports.
Huge news.
And it wasn't just like a political headline or something.
Right.
This was something that really could have reshaped our everyday lives.
Yeah, so we're talking about, like, Trump and trade deals and renegotiating those. And
Yeah.
he said that Canada and Mexico were taking advantage of the U.S.
Yeah, he made that argument.
And so I think this brings us to an interesting question.
Okay.
Were these tariffs like a legitimate kind of power play, or was this something that was just protectionist that could backfire?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to really understand that,
Right.
I think we have to kind of look back and see how tariffs have been used historically.
Okay.
I mean, they've been around for centuries, right?
Yeah.
Often they're used to protect domestic industries.
Uh-huh.
But, if you think back to like the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act back in 1930,
Yeah.
this was meant to help American farmers
Right.
during the Depression.
Right.
But it actually ended up making things worse.
Wow.
Because other countries, they put retaliatory tariffs in place.
Oh, so it's like a trade war?
Yeah, basically one country raises tariffs, the other one retaliates.
Wow.
And it can just escalate and escalate until it hurts everyone.
And this almost happened with Canada and Mexico.
Almost. Yeah.
What were their arguments against these potential tariffs?
Well, both countries, they push back pretty hard.
Yeah.
They were saying,
Oh,
look, North American trade is deeply integrated.
Right.
This is going to hurt everybody.
Yeah.
The Canadian auto industry, for example, is really intertwined with the U.S.
Yeah.
Parts are crossing the border like multiple times during the manufacturing process.
Wow.
And so if you slap a tariff on Canadian auto parts, that's going to drive up costs for American car companies.
Makes sense.
Which ultimately hurts the American consumer.
So it's not even like a one country wins, one country loses thing.
Right.
It's all very interconnected.
Yeah, it's a complex web.
What about Mexico?
Yeah. So Mexico, their big concern was the agricultural sector because, they supply a lot of produce to the U.S.
Right.
And so they were saying, look, if you put tariffs on our stuff, avocados, tomatoes, all this other stuff,
yeah,
that's going to get a lot more expensive for the American consumer.
My guacamole would have taken a hit.
Exactly.
But it's not even just about like the immediate price hikes.
Right.
What about like the long-term consequences?
Yeah.
If these tariffs had actually gone into effect?
Well, that's the thing about tariffs.
Yeah.
It's hard to predict how those impacts are going to ripple through the economy.
Right.
They might protect some domestic industries in the short term.
Okay.
But they can also lead to higher prices for consumers. You could see job losses in other sectors.
Right.
Potentially reduce economic growth overall.
Right.
And then there's always that risk of just that tit-for-tat escalation.
Right.
That turns into a full-blown trade war that hurts everybody.
Wow. So it's really complex.
Oh, yeah.
And the potential consequences are like pretty significant. This makes me wonder, like, if tariffs are so risky,
yeah,
why do countries even, like, think about them?
Right. Well, they can be a powerful bargaining chip.
Yeah.
A way to pressure another country to make concessions. And, sometimes maybe you have a targeted tariff that could be used to address unfair trade practices, but it's a very delicate balancing act.
Okay.
And the potential for unintended consequences is
Yeah.
always there.
Definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
So this deep dive has really shown us
Yeah.
that tariffs are powerful, but they're also potentially dangerous.
Absolutely.
And international trade.
Yeah.
They can affect everything,
Right.
from the price of our groceries to the health of our economy.
Absolutely.
I think the big question is,
Yeah.
do the potential benefits
Right.
outweigh those risks?
Mm.
And what are the alternatives to using tariffs
Right.
to address these trade imbalances?
Good question.
This is definitely a conversation that we need to keep having.
Absolutely.
And I encourage all of you listening to keep learning about these issues.
It's really important.
Because they affect all of us.
They do.
So thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure being here.
And we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.